So that should work. If it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, it does. Okay. Um, Hi, good evening. How is everyone? Good? Great. Awesome. Um, the audio should be recording, but the video might not be. I don't know. I'll have to watch the video once we're done and see what did and didn't record. I'm going to share my screen so that everyone can see. Yeah. Okay. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Okay. So last time we spoke about middleware, right? And we went into depth about what middleware is and how it works. And we included a little middleware. We realized that we already had a bunch of middleware included in some previous projects, right? And what we're going to do here and what your next assignment is going to be is it's going to be about auth. So we're going to have a couple of routes, and what our goal is to protect our routes with authorization. So we've got the app.use, and we have like our route logger, right, which is this little logger, this logger, this logger middleware, which logs specific details about the user. Technically, by the way, just for the record, tracking things like IP addresses is potentially GDPR, like privacy issues in terms of data retention laws. So be careful, even if you're just tracking IP addresses. Make sure that like you're not associating it with accounts, because the moment you associate like an IP address with an account, you begin to build a picture of someone, and the moment you're starting to build a picture of someone, like the moment you have identifying details of a person as part of data, you become responsible for like data maintenance and like a GDRP, which is the Global Data Retention Policy, which is basically the laws that govern data retention, like the data you store and what you need to do with it and how you need to handle it. Just be aware of that because we are in this example here, we're actually tracking IP addresses as part of it. We're also always running the next, which is basically saying, hey, do this and then pass it on. Aside from that, we've got our root logger. We turned our error handler, right, which is a function we already had, but we turned that into a middleware, which catches in case there's an error. Um, and we created an auth. Now, our auth checker currently sucks, right? Right now, our auth checker doesn't actually check for anything. It literally just checks if the header has the role of admin, and anyone can just manipulate their header and add that. So that is like a really, really bad header. What we want to do is we want to create some sort of a secret key with a payload. Uh, what we want to do is we want to create cookies. Not cookies, sorry. We want to create tokens. So what we're going to do today is we're going to walk through the process of creating a token, and as we walk through the process of creating a token, I'm going to explain what's going on with that and exactly what it is, because I did kind of explain it last time, but I think it was pretty confusing because it was very abstract. So we're going to create it, so I'm going to do it in a little more, I'm going to do it a little slower and a little more depth as we do it. Express.js token. Okay. All right. First step we're going to do is we're going to need to install a JSON Web Token, the JSON Web Token library. So to be clear, what we're going to end up using is we're going to end up using JWT, which are JSON Web Tokens, right? Which are a specific kind of token. There's a bunch of libraries. Like this is something important to understand, and this is like a rule about the web in general. We end up with JSON in a lot of different contexts, right? So there's a bunch of different languages that like JSON Web Tokens work for. All right, so we can take a look at that. Let's just focus on the current one, right? Like literally, where there's a bunch of .NET libraries. There's an Ada library, a Bun library, C libraries, like you name a language. Oh, someone is trying to get into the lecture. Oop, wait, was that somebody else trying to join? Did someone have a question or did someone leave? No? Okay. All right. I'll try to keep an eye. But if you have a question, call it out because I'm kind of stuck between windows. But I'm just illustrating here is that pretty much any language you can think of and a bunch of ones you've never heard of have JWT have libraries that handle JSON Web Tokens. We are going to be using for our purposes. We're just going to use npm install. It is the literally just called JSON Web Token is the name of the library we're using. All right. Now, inside of our middleware, now this is the important point that we're primarily working in the middleware today. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a token secret. So, secret is one of those words that never looks correct, even when I spell it correctly. Equals. Now because we're doing this, we may as well do this right. So I'm going to show you how to actually generate a random secret that will work. What we're going to do here is I'm going to open Node, and I'm going to use some built-in libraries. I'm going to do require crypto, which is a cryptography library. I'm going to do dot random bytes 64. So I'm going to generate 64 random bytes. I'm going to go toString hex. And we're going to run this. And I'm going to get back this. Now, this is supposed to be a secret, meaning I should not be showing this to you. But because this is in a project that you are never going to have access to, I really don't care to show it to you. Now you see this is just a long string, right? And this is a series of 64 random bytes converted into hexadecimal. Right? This is a simple secret. This can be anything, but we're trying to just have a random secret, right? So I'm going to copy this, paste it as my tokens and secrets. Does everybody understand what I did there? Like what this is? Does everyone understand like what I just did? Or do I need to explain that again?
I think it's clear.
Right? Basically, I needed to generate a bunch of junk, right? Literally just a bunch of random characters, and I need those to be secret, and I need them to be in hexadecimal format, right? So require crypto, right? Crypto is a library that is designed for cryptography. So one of the things it does is it generates a bunch of random. It's very good at generating different random data. So in this case, I'm generating 64 random bytes, and then I'm converting that into. Uh, sorry about that. The notifications, and then I'm going to do, and then I convert those 64 random bytes into hexadecimal. That's why we have until the letter E in this, right? And we've seen hexadecimal codes before. We've talked about them. They get used in plenty of different places in cryptography and in our work, right? So that is the first step. Now, remember, this line of code is just a this is just a line of code that we're running in Node directly, right? So I opened my command line, I wrote Node, and then inside Node I did this. Because we have a scripts folder already, we can create a new file in our scripts folder. We can call it generate 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 token.js, right? And I can copy my line of code that I used to generate the token, and I can put it in here, right? And we can just do, we can rewrite this a little bit to make it a little cleaner. We can do const crypto equals require crypto, right? And then we just do crypto.randomByte, right? And we just and we do const const secret equals, right? Sorry, I should really rename this file. It shouldn't be generate token. It should be generate uh, name to generate secret. And then all we're going to do is we're going to take this, sorry, open that script again. All right, and we just take our code here. And then the last thing we're going to do is console.log secret to this safely and share it. And followed by whoop, secret. So I've just taken the code that we did and I've turned it into a little script. So if anyone using our library ever needs to generate their own secret, you can just do something like this, right? Uh, that is the basics of what we need. That is how we generate our secret, and we added that to our environment. So now that we have a token secret, we can actually create tokens, because the way that our tokens are going to work is it relies on public key and private key access, and there's some complex stuff related to that, which I'll potentially either assign a video or explain in some depth later. But for now, the important thing to know is we're going to create two functions here. Right, we have an auth checker, right, which is just a check token, right? Right, this is our auth middleware. So we're gonna rename this token checker, or actually better to rename it check token. Um, and then we're gonna create a second one, which is called const generate token. And we're going to take in a username. Actually, we're going to take in, should we just take in a username? Yeah, let's just take in a username. Constant token equals, well, actually, we'll take in a role. Because I don't want to start creating users, we're just going to take in a role and create a token based on that. So the way we generate a token is we're going to need the JWT library right here. So we're going to do const JWT equals require JSON web token, right? And we're going to we're going to generate the JSON Web Token. So we're going to do JWT dot sign username, role, right, which is the information that we're putting into the token. We're doing process dot env dot token secret, right, which is our secret, and we're going to do some options. So there's your payload, your secret key, and our options. And in this case, our options are going to be expires in, and we will set it for, let's see, let's say we want it 24 hours. If we have to do this in seconds, really quickly, calculator. Actually, let me just do 24 hours. 24 each. Right. Just confirm that I can do that. If I look up using token node expires in. Yeah, we can expires in. We can do okay. So we can literally do something like we can do 1 day. So we'll do 1D for 1 day. Usually we have to calculate it in milliseconds, which is just a pain. Luckily, we don't have to do that here. We can just write it out as 1 day, right? And we're just going to return, this middleware is going to return this thing. We're going to delete that, and we're going to return generate token and check token, which breaks our where did we put the, yeah, auth checker, right? We put it over here. We're going to, so I'm going to leave that there for now, and we are eventually going to come back here and fix this. Now, going back to my auth, we've got the check token, right? Is check token a good enough name, or should we verify? Doesn't matter. More important is what we're going to do, right? So we're going to have to actually authenticate the token, right? So our check token now needs, it should actually be like verify token or verify whatever. We'll figure out what to call it later. For now, though, what we're going to do is step one is we check const auth header equals request dot headers authorization. So first thing we're doing is we're literally just checking, hey, we're gonna look for we're gonna get the auth header, right? Next we're gonna do is we're going to get we're going to actually get out the token. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do const token equals auth header. So making sure that it's there, and auth header dot split space. I will explain why we do that in a moment. We will see why we're why we're turning the auth header into an array by splitting it into space and grabbing the first space over there. This will make more sense when we're done. and you actually see what the token looks like. Now we just have to do a quick thing, right? Which is just if token equals null, turn if token equals null. I don't usually write these on one line, but it's probably better practice to do it. Sorry, I started a new job last week, and so I am doing like a lot of the stuff that were a lot of like my code habits might change slightly in terms of how I write certain things out. Like for example, using a single line. If anything I do gets status 401, right? And what we're doing here is we're saying, hey, response is a 401, bug off. Next, what we're going to do is, assuming that the token is actually there, we're going to verify it, right? All right. JWT dot verify. So we're going to use JWT to verify. We're going to take in the token. We're going to provide our secret key. Process dot env dot token secret as string. That should not be needed. It is a string. Oh, doing that. And then a callback function. So we've spoken about callback functions before, and we've passed them around. Like even this is a callback function, right? And we're gonna have roll, right? And then what we do here is we do console.log error. So if there's an error, we want to know what the error was. We're also going to say if there's an error, if error, turn response dot send status 403, right? Which is hey, there's some internal there's some problem with your request. And otherwise, we do request dot roll equals roll and next. So what are we doing here? It's a lot of words, I know, but it should be pretty straightforward. So let's talk it through. What verify token does is it just checks that the token is valid, pulls out the information, and attaches it to the request. So technically, we can use this for every single. Technically, we can use this for every single route, except we're only ever going to use it for the routes where we expect a token. Otherwise, a lot of this code, right? If I don't expect a token there, then I don't even need. Then I shouldn't be checking for one. But if I break this down line by line, what does our code do? Our code checks the headers for the authorization, splits out the token, and I will explain what that means in a second. We'll test it and I'll explain what it means. We are going to return is going to be send status, then we're going to JWT.verify. We're going to verify our token and add the role to the request, and then we just go on to next. So we've got our middleware, and an important thing to note here is that this middleware is actually like this middleware has multiple. This file is going to have multiple middlewares in it because they're all related to our tokens and they're all related to authorization. And that's just how we're organizing this to keep things simple. And at the same time, we're going to have to redefine this. So what I want to do is I want to add one more thing. I'm going to add router dot get slash off. And this is going to take in a request and response. Basically, what I want to do is I want to establish a way for us to create the I want to establish a way for us to get the token, and then we're going to have a way to put the to use the token. So if anyone has any questions about what we've done so far, please let me know. Nope. Okay. So in the auth, we're going to have in the auth we will have um, request dot body dot role. Or you know what? We're gonna make this simple. We are going to say that hey, do the auth, if you do the authorization route, then we are just going to do const token equals sorry equals and replace auth checker with auth generate token verify token. So generate token and verify token. Right, got these two. Now we are going to generate token, and we're going to pass in the role of admin, and we're going to do response.json token token. Just going to pass back the we'll wrap it. Okay. So here what we're doing is we're passing. By the way, can everyone hear me clearly, or am I talking too low or something?
It's okay.
Okay. Is everyone following along what's happening so far?
Yes, so far so good.
Okay. Anybody else besides Sophia following?
Yeah, I'm following.
All right. So here what we're doing is we're just creating the token and sending it back. And then and we're going to say, hey, in order to initialize the database, you need to be authorized. So const, we will say, I'm going to delete the auth checker from here for now. Actually, no, I'm going to delete auth checker and move to verify token, right? And now we just do and then we just do if cross dot roll equals admin. Figure it out. Right. So if the user comes back, if the user is an admin, they're able to do this. Else, I'm going to send back response dot status 40 403, I believe, is unauthorized. Yeah, 403 dot JSON. All right. So our verified token, we explained last time that by putting a middleware over here, it gets called before the next step, before our actual function over here gets called. And our verified token is going to check, make sure that, hey, this person's actually authorized. For demo purposes, I'm actually going to be using Postman for this one because Postman allows us to manipulate our headers in the way that we will need to for this stuff. So this is going to be initialize DB, right? And we're going to add one more. Add another request and call it get token, and it's going to be base URL / auth. All right. So I'm just going to close all tabs. I'm going to open my get token. All right. So before I get my token, I'm going to try. So I'm going to run my app. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to do npm run dev, and we're going to open localhost. And I've got this nice page that shows up here, which is lovely, which means I know that my thing's up and running. Now I'm going to do just get index to make sure that this is set up correctly. Perfect, same thing. Now I'm going to go to initialize database, and I'm going to attempt to use that. I'm going to get back forbidden. Right, I get back to 403, I just get back a forbidden, I don't get back any details. We're going to go back over here, and we're just going to see, hey, this is status 403 forbidden. So we're going to save that, just reload it. JWT token error. We've got an error here already. Didn't stop anything from going through, but I've got an error. JWT must be provided. Auth, JWT. We should be getting the 401. Right? We're getting a 403, and we should be getting a 401. That's not good. So let's rewrite our code a little bit. We do let's try that. Send now. There we go. Okay. So this code was incomplete, my mistake. I forgot to add that, hey, we're checking for this, and then what we're actually doing is something else. Now we're getting back a 401, and we're not getting any errors anymore, right? I refresh that again. Yeah, I'm just getting back the init, the error, but I'm not getting back anything else. Perfect. Now, let us get our token. So I'm going to send that. We get back an internal error. Expires in option, invalid expires in option for string payload. Okay, let's do this the old-fashioned way. 1,000 times 60 gives me 1 minute, times 60 gives me 1 hour, times 24 gives me a day. For those of you have not had to deal with this headache in the past. What I'm doing here is I'm saying expires in wants milliseconds. So I do 1,000 milliseconds gives me 1 second, times 60 seconds gives me 1 minute, times 60 minutes gives me an hour, times 24 hours gives me a day. Basically, why we write it out like this instead of just doing the math once and storing it in is so that the next programmer who comes along and reads it understands exactly if they have experience with programming and if they have experience with dealing with milliseconds, which most programmers do at this point. They will immediately know what this line means and it'll make sense to them and it reads clearer. 1,000 times 60 times 60 times 24. So if you ever come across a string like this in anything that you know is supposed to have an amount of time, you will now know why it's written like that. It is literally counting, it is literally just do the math of the milliseconds. And the reason why we want to do it continuously is so that it's easily legible for the next programmer. So if I've done this correctly now, I should be able to do that. Expires an option for invalid expires option for string payload. What? What is this error? Ah, my mistake. It can't be a string payload, it needs to be JSON. Just to show you what that means, it means I need to do this. So now that I've put the role inside of JSON, I can go back to here and we can do send. There we go. So now I have a token. And you see this token is a long ass thing, right? Now I'm going to take this long ass thing and I'm going to go back to the JWT.io website. Right? And I'm going to paste this long thing in there. Invalid signature. I said, hey, the secret is base64 encoded, and now it is, and now it can actually read it and verify it, right? I tell you it's a base64 encoded secret, and JWT is able to verify that it's a valid JWT. They don't know the secret, and I can't change the info. I should not be able to change the information. Like if I try to change it, it's gonna break the. It will break, but at least it works. But at least it reads it. So what I'm doing here. So now, how do I actually use this token? So on the user side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, and this is not really how I have to do it. Really, in practice, and I'll show you how we do this in practice later. But what we do here is because I have the token, I can go into authorize DB, and I can go into headers, and I can go into authorization, and we can say JWT bearer, right? And say that's the algorithm. Um, or add token to request header, and I'm not able to add it like that, right? Instead, what I do is I do bearer token, and we put in the token, uh, and we save this, and we send it back. Internal error. What's the internal error now? Admin is not defined. Oh, that's silly. That is very, very silly. But no. All right, what did we break? We didn't actually send this back. dot this should be send status. Right? Yeah, I forgot to actually send the status. So if we do this and we do set, we're getting a forbidden. Good. This is wrong. It should not be forbidden, but at least it's getting that. Why is it getting that? Because I did not set up the authorization properly. Instead of doing this manually, I'm going to delete that because it shouldn't have that anymore. And authorization is going to have some weird secret. So instead of doing Vera token, I'm going to do no auth, and then we're going to do add a manual header with authorization, and it's going to say token space control V. Now send. Still getting an error. All right, let's go through this step by step. Log token. Very quickly, let's just do this. So we are getting back the correct token over here. That's good. Token is coming here, but for some reason, now what happens if I go over here and I try to get request.roll log request.roll. And if we send this, that's the mistake. Request. Ta-da! Perfect. So I'm going to get rid of my console.log messages that I don't need anymore. And I will explain our final code if anyone is confused by it. So, is everyone clear on what's happening here or not really?
Not really.
Okay. So, let's talk it through because there's two parts to this. The first part is we create the token. Create the token, the token has three parts to it. Those three parts are separated by dots. The first part tells you the algorithm and the type of token this is. Right? The second part has what's called the payload. All right? Now, the payload is the payload of the token is the actual important thing, the information. The last part is the last part is a secret, right? This is the signature of the token. Okay? So we've got a algorithm, right? The header, which is the information about it, the payload, which is the data of the token itself, and then the signature, which is, hey, this is the information to verify my token. So if I go over here and I copy the token that we have, right? Because we have a token. Now, when I write this, when I'm looking at my token, I look for it in a header. Sometimes it says, sometimes it's like um, bearer space, right, like that. Sometimes authorization header will have like a bearer space and then the name of the token. Sometimes it'll have a just the token itself, depending on how you configure your server setup. But for our purposes, we're going to have the word bearer followed by the followed by the token. And you see our token has those has those two dots in it and those three parts. So if I open JWT and I paste my token, it says invalid signature because it doesn't actually know the secret signature. What it does know is what it can do is it can read all of it. Now the way that this works is basically a public-private key setup is a setup where anyone can verify what you've done, but no one can recreate it. How that works is a lot of complex stuff that we're not going to discuss right now, but that's some cryptography stuff. But the bottom line is that anyone can read the contents of my token, but no one can recreate said token. Okay? So that's why if I plug it into this website, we can see the content of my token, which is three things. It has the role, it has IAT, and it has EXP. EXP is when it expires. The role is the personal information I actually care about, and IAT is when it was created, right? When it was created, when it expires, just like that. Any questions about that, or does that make sense to everyone?
Yes, it makes sense.
Perfect. So now you understand the token. So now what do? We have two routes that we created. One route, or one we created new, just creates a token and sends it back to us. Okay? So this is an authorization route that sends the token. The other route is now verify the token. And what this verify token function does is it verifies my token, but does one more thing. It looks at the payload, right? The payload being the middle part of my token, right? This data, what my verify token does is once it checks that this token exists, that this token is valid, it will then, right? So if there's an error, it'll immediately send back an error. But if there's no error, then it'll say, hey, take your request and add the role field to the request and set it to the value of payload.role. Make sense?
Yes. Yes, makes
So
sense.
we could do this well, not just with something as simple as a role, but we could do this with something as complex as like a whole user object, right? Because this is just JSON that's being passed back and forth, I can just as easily set up I can set up a JSON user object and add that directly to the request. And then we just run next, right? And what does next do for our, right, which we've discussed before? What does next do? Next says, hey, after this middleware, go on to the next function that you're supposed to go on to, right? So I'm going to delete that because we don't need that one either. And what happens now is we do request.role is admin, right? So now we just check, now that we know that request.role has been set by the verify token field, how do we know it's been set? We got here, otherwise we wouldn't get here. Then we do if request.role equals admin, we initialize our database, and we do response.json, hey, database has been initialized. Otherwise, we do response.setStatus 403, you are forbidden from entering this area, right? So you're attempting to do something that you're not allowed to do. So the only way to actually do this is to generate a token first and apply that token to your header. Now you'll notice something cool about tokens. We don't actually need to store any data about tokens on the back end, right? The whole point of tokens is that we send them out, but we don't have to check that. We don't have to store information related to them. We don't have to store session data. We literally just, the token itself contains all the information related to it, including its expiration date, right? Like that's what the whole expires in thing means, because it means that our token is only valid for a certain amount of time. And when that token expires, what's going to happen is the users are going to just get back, is the users are gonna, you can't manipulate a token. The only way to manipulate a token is to have the secret code, is to have the secret key. So if you try to manipulate a token without the secret key, the data just gets corrupted. This is why, despite them being easily reasonable, this is why they might be easily readable, but they aren't, but you can't just generate them. And how does that work? That works by some very complicated math shit that we are not going to get into because this is not a cryptography class. But in cryptography, we discuss in depth, cryptography explains how this sort of stuff works. And if you're curious about that, I recommend you look into cryptography. The one last thing that we should really do is we should assign it, instead of setting this token here, we should really assign the token to a header, right? Because right now we're sending the token back, but the token is not being assigned to the header. Um, and to do that, we're going to have to deal with some fun stuff, but it should not be that big a deal. I might save that for next week, actually. We might just leave it here for now. The stuff that we've done today, does anyone have any questions about it, or is it all clear?
Me, it's really clear. The last explanation was really clear.
Perfect. Lakshi, clear for you?
Yes, sir. Sound good.
Awesome. As you are the only people here, if it's clear for you, then it is clear for everybody who matters. Alex left. I assumed it was clear for him too, or he had to run. Either way. Um, all right. This more or less, yeah, this basically completes everything we wanted to do for the semester. I think what I'm going to do for the second assignment is I'm going to have you, the second assignment and the final project, I'm going to give out at the same time, just so that you have plenty of time to do both, because the final project is pretty big. Relatively speaking, you can work in teams, but you need to create a full application yourself from scratch. And starting next week, we're going to build like a different application, or we'll build something else back end. We'll discuss it and we'll do stuff like that. One moment, I'm going to stop the recording and then I'll finish this conversation.